Alrighty, so are you guys ready to talk about some of the chaos and madness that we saw in terms of the Saturday night action of match week number 19? Because expect this to once again be a long review just like last week, and we're definitely going to talk about that chaos that happened in Texas, where we probably saw one of the craziest stoppage time kind of shenanigans we have seen in an MLS game, and there was definitely plenty of peak MLS moments and peak MLS After Dark moments in terms of the madness that we saw in terms of the Saturday night action of match week number 19. But we start off with the first game, and actually I say Saturday night, there was actually day games, and this of course was a day game between NYCFC versus New England, which in the end, NYCFC finally snapped out of a bit of a cold streak that they've been in by winning 4-2 against the Revs and finally give their interim head coach Nick Cushing his first win as an NYCFC interim head coach. And early on, they actually got the lead just 10 minutes in after a penalty was given as Magno was brought down by Farrell. And Magno, of course, won the penalty, was rewarded to be taking the penalty, and he buried that one away to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead. By the way, penalty will be a big talking point in this game because we saw something historic in this one that involves penalties. But in the 11th minute, Petrovic did deny Morales from close range, as NYCFC were looking by far the better team in the first 10 minutes and looked like they were going to run away with this one by getting the second goal. But then in the 18th minute, New England kind of out of nowhere get the equalizer, and it's Gustavo Bo scoring from legit to tie the game up at 1 apiece, completely against the run of play. Though that equalizer looked like it wasn't going to last for long, as in the 31st minute, another penalty was given to NYCFC after Kester brought down Castellanos in the box. Now, when I saw on the replay of that, I thought this was soft. I thought there was really not a lot of contact. And anytime when Tati Castellanos is involved in terms of winning NYCFC a penalty, I don't think anybody should be surprised that it may be soft, because Castellanos is the master in terms of trying to embellish or even try to dive so that he can give his team either a foul or, in this case, a penalty. And it seems like the referee fell for it, because it was given a penalty, and just like how Magno was able to win the penalty and he was rewarded to take the penalty shot, the same goes with Castellanos. But unfortunately, unlike where Magno was able to bury it, Castellanos couldn't do it, as Petrovic was able to deny him from the spot. Though I guess ball don't lie in terms of that, because like I said, it was a relatively soft foul in my opinion in terms of how Castellanos kind of embellished a little bit. I mean, there was some contact that Kester did make with Tati Castellanos, but there was no doubt Castellanos did make a little bit more of that, and that, I guess, again, ball don't lie, and the justice maybe was made with Petrovic able to deny the NYCFC talisman a goal in this one. But in the 36th minute, Johnson did deny by from 10 yards out. Before, in the 41st minute, history was made, as a third penalty was awarded for NYCFC after Farrell brought down Castellanos, who was through on goal, and Farrell actually got a red card for this. And again, this is where it goes back to that discussion: is double jeopardy even a rule in MLS? Because I feel like if that was maybe in the Premier League, I think Farrell would have just got away with a yellow card, because I guess in the whole double jeopardy rule where you commit a foul in the box and that you don't get like a straight red, you only get like a yellow card, but you still can concede the penalty. And that if that rule was in play, I don't think Andrew Farrell would have been sent off in terms of this play. But nevertheless, he was sent off, and New England was down to 10 men. And Castellanos, of course, who won the penalty, he gets another crack of potentially redeem himself after that miss in the 33rd minute. And this time he makes no mistake, and he buries that one to make it 3-0 in favor of, or actually not 3-0, 2-1 in favor of NYCFC. Kind of saw the scoreline. I was actually looking of this game that we'll talk about in just a bit, and also the history that I mentioned. This is the first time that we've seen an MLS team have won 3 penalty in a single game, which is kind of surprising, because I swear I thought a team has won 3 penalty before in the game, but no, it has never happened, and this is actually the first time that has happened, and it's even more impressive that it all happened in the first half alone. But we head to halftime with NYCFC holding a 2-1 lead, but then in the second half, it would be 3-1, as Pereira would score for NYCFC early in the second half to push the lead to 2 goals. Then in the 60th minute, it was almost 3-2 when the post denied Leggett and the refs a goal back. Rodriguez then puts it wide from close before Petrovic denied Rodriguez from close range in the 76th minute. And NYCFC, they know that with this two goal lead, they need to try to maybe get a fourth to really put this game out of hand, because we have seen 3-1 lead being blown before in league play, and it looked like that was going to be the case in the 77th minute, because New England would get one back. It's Gustavo Bo scoring from Jones and Hill to really put this game back on at Yankee Stadium, but all that hope of a comeback came to an end in the 83rd minute, as in the 83rd minute, Tati Castellanos would score his second goal off the game, and I believe his 12th goals this season in MLS, as he pushed the lead back to a 2-goal lead for NYCFC, and NYCFC was leading 4-2 up to that point, and that would be the final score of this one, as in the end, the shots in this one, 22 shots for the 10 that New England has, 11 shots on goal for the 6 that New England has, 9 shots off target for the 3 that New England has, 2 shots that was blocked compared to the 1 that the refs had, and possession-wise, NYCFC had better the possession, 60% possession compared to 40% possession that New England has in this game. And it's also worthy to note that Bruce Arena, he basically went off after the post-game press conference, and how he basically complained about the playing condition, and how also the fact that the penalties were very soft, but mostly he complained about the playing condition, and how he is absolutely fuming the fact that this game was a 1 p.m. start. And some part of it I don't blame him, because again, we're now into July. We shouldn't be having afternoon kickoff, especially in the East Coast and in the New York, because when that's time, it's very muggy and very humid, and that was the case in this one. In terms of the penalty itself, I mean, yeah, you could argue the one that the second one that NYCFC won, of course, that probably shouldn't have been a penalty, but the other two, I don't had any problem with, and especially as we'll talk about in the next game, there were definitely some penalty controversy in that one, and that at least in this one again, I think in the end NYCFC deserve all 3 points, but Bruce Arena, he definitely want to find ways to kind of complain, and that let's just hope he doesn't start turning into Caleb Porter in some way, and that this also isn't the first time we've seen New England decided to kind of complain about the playing condition, because remember earlier this season when Carlos Hill was angry about playing in the snow after they lost 3-2, and it's kind of also ironic the fact, well, actually, I would say it was kind of ironic this game was also at 3-2, but then I realized, yeah, the final score of this was actually 4-2. But either way, let us actually move on into the next game, which is the Cascadia Derby between the Seattle Sounders versus the Portland Timbers. Now, this was an interesting Cascadia Derby, because for most part of this game, Seattle were the better team, and you would say that coming out of this one, they probably maybe were the one to deserve all 3 points. But how many times we said before, just because you're the better team doesn't mean you can always win the game. I mean, that's the beauty of soccer. You could be the better team, or you could be the team that maybe gets outplayed, but somehow you still can get a victory in the end, because as long as you're a little bit more clinical in terms of your finishing and maybe some luck go by your side, you can get 3 points, and that's exactly what the Portland Timber did in this one. I mean, they were the more clinical side in this one, and they kind of got some luck on their side with some controversial penalty call that was going against the Sounders. Though, again, you kind of knew this was going to happen when the fact that the Sounders, a couple of months ago, they announced they were going to raise the CONCACAF Champions League banner against their hated rival, against the Portland Timbers, to continue to show the insufferability that the Seattle Sounders fan base is known to show. But also, they actually decided to unveil a tifo saying that we are the greatest team you ever see. Yeah, not only the fact that, I know the Sounders does provide some great tifos, but that was not one of them. And you knew that tifo, as soon as I saw that, yeah, that must have angered the MLS gods, because the MLS gods were definitely making sure that the Sounder paid the price in this one, and boy did the Sounder pay a big price in this game. But in the first half, the first shot of the derby came in the 6th minute as Rodon puts it high from close range, before on the other end, Blanco had a shot that was deflected that goes right to Fry. But despite the early chances, I thought it was a cagey start into this game. Both teams was just feeling each other out. And one thing about the Cascadia Derby is that it's not as frantic as what we've seen in El Tráfico. You're not going to see this game go back and forth like we've seen in El Tráfico. You're actually going to see both teams kind of play almost like a playoff game kind of vibe, where they're just going to feel each other out, and then eventually they're going to let it loose a little bit and try to get that first goal. But in the 15th minute, Rusnak trying to get that first goal for the Sounders, but he puts it wide in the near post before Ivasic robbed Ladero from point blank in the 16th minute as the Sounders were pushing for the opener. Bravo actually cleared Reagan shot off the line in the 17th minute. The shots was 6-1 in favor of the Seattle Sounder up to that point. But then in the 24th minute, completely against the run of play, Nishgoda scored from Blanco and Chara to give the Timbers a 1-0 lead. And Nishgoda right now, it's clear to say that he has find his stride again. I mean, he is just in a red hot form ever since he finally broke that drought of scoring a goal this season. But like I said, it was completely against the run of play, because up to that point the Sounders were by far the better team, and the Timbers barely had a kick in the game up to that point. And then in the 31st minute, Blanco almost made it 2-0, but he hits one right to Fry, and it just feels like that goal really deflated the Sounders, because Seattle really kind of lost its sharpness that they shown in the first 20 minutes after they concede in the 24th minute. And then this is where we get to the controversy. So in the 39th minute, there was a shout for a penalty for the Sounders as they feel Van Reken brought down Ladero in the box. And not only the fact that Van Reken clearly brought down Ladero in the box, it was not even close. Like, the fact that they kind of did go to VAR to see it. Again, remember, just because the referee didn't go to the monitor doesn't mean that the play is not checked by VAR. And especially this season with VAR now being headquartered in Atlanta, and it's in a control kind of environment instead of being at the stadium. Yeah, this is a better way, I think, in my opinion, to kind of check everything without having asked the referee to go to the monitor every time. I mean, you still see the referee go to the monitor sometime, but they definitely checked to see whether or not if that was a penalty, and they said no, which I think that was the wrong call, because you can clearly see Van Reken brought down Ladero in the box there. Like, this kind of foul is nothing different than what we saw in this game between NYCFC versus New England, in the one that Farrell basically brought down Castellanos in the box. And yeah, I think Sounders fans had every right to be angry about that. But if you're the Timbers, again, luck were on their side in this one, and they got away with one in the 39th minute. Now in the 42nd minute, Rusnak would hit a volley wide before Ruidíaz actually struck the post from 16 yards out. You usually do not see Ruidíaz miss an opportunity from that close, especially being wide open, but the post denied him there. And you can definitely see Seattle was getting blue ball, and that this was kind of the story of the night, where the MLS gods will make sure that the Sounders are going to be humble in this one by doing everything that in the power to screw the Seattle Sounders in this one. Now in the second half, things get to even a worse start for the Sounders, as Jackson Reagan would get his second yellow card. And this time, I don't think it was more of the MLS gods scoring the Sounders, but more like this is something that Jackson Reagan has no one to blame but himself. Like, this was just a silly tackle that he made on Eric Williamson. And I know Jackson Reagan is still a relatively inexperienced player, and that I think this is his first Cascadia derby, but you cannot lose your heads like that and commit a silly foul literally on the first minute of the second half, because you can see that the Sounders they want to continue to push to get this second goal, and the last thing they need is now go down to 10 men for the remaining of the second half, which is exactly what happened in this. And then in the 52nd minute, Moreno puts it wide from close range as the Timbers were pressing for the second goal. Like, they smell blood. They know that they're now a man advantage, and that unlike how we've seen so many times this season in the league, where just because you're up a man, it doesn't mean you're the better team. They're trying to make sure that wasn't the case. Though, another thing that I've also realized is that the referees decided to swallow the whistle and letting a lot of things go. And although I know the refereeing in this game, especially the blown PK call, will be a talking point in this, I thought in terms of just controlling the game, they did a relatively good job of it. Yes, they did let go of some obvious foul, but I think that sometimes is a good thing, where you don't want a game to just be very stop and go and basically the flow of the game. And also, not to mention, if you decide to kind of blow the whistle a lot, you basically get a lot of players, and that the players are starting to get very frustrated because of the fouls that it's given. So I think in some way it was kind of good that they decided to let some of the obvious fouls, of the not egregious foul go, and let this game goes along, because overall we didn't really see any kind of scuffle between both of these teams. I mean, we've seen before where it can definitely get heated and the tempers can be flared in the Cascadia Derby. That's not the case in this one. It was really coolly controlled, and there was not any tempers flare up as we've seen in some of the derbies that we've seen from this week's Heineken rivalry week. Though that being said, in the 67th minute, Ivicic did deny Ruidíaz, and the flag of course went up, so that wouldn't have counted. Even Ruidíaz put it away. The Sounders were starting to regain the control of the game, and the Timbers, they were just trying to shut things down, which again, I understand. Yes, you're leading 1-0, and you want to maybe do what they usually do, which is trying to bunker and maybe look for the counterattack, but it's still a dangerous game to play, especially against the Seattle Sounders. And not to mention, they have allowed 7 goals in the final 15 minutes this season, so they have not done very well this season in terms of shutting things down. And that feels like it's 2020 all over again, where remember 2020 was when I really started to kind of beat the dead horse of the fact that the Timbers always tends to blow a lead, and it's just so predictable that they're going to blow the lead late in the game. Though that being said, in the 81st minute, a penalty was given to the Timbers after VAR decided that Nuhu handballed that one in the box. Now, overall, they did get that one right. It was pretty clear that Nuhu handballed that one, but that also has to frustrate the Sounders, especially the fact that, now you get the call correctly. But then what happened in the first half when we had an obvious penalty that was clearly a penalty, but it was not given. But nevertheless, the Timbers will take it. And Moreno, of course, steps up to take the penalty. He buries it to make it 2-0 in favor of the Timbers. And then just to make sure, Asprilla would score from Nishgoda and Moreno to make it 3-0 in favor of the Timbers, to really put the dagger in this Cascadia Derby, and also just a classic Timbers counterattack. When in doubt, when the Timbers are in a bad run of form, why not run the bread and butter? Why not run the lightning counterattack that they love to do? Because most of the time, when they are successful in terms of it, nobody can stop them, and that was an example of that. And yeah, as I said, it was a dagger in this game, pretty much put this game out of reach. And in the end, the Timbers getting a massive 3-point lead and continue the streak where the road team always tends to win the Cascadia Derby. I mean, it's crazy the fact that I think in the last 10 Cascadia Derby, the road team are 9-1-1 in this one. I can't explain why the road team always win it and the home team don't win it. But if there's one thing that I will say about this game, is that the Timbers will take it, because this is exactly what they needed. Not only of them started making a run, but this is all. I wouldn't be surprised that this team is going to start a good run of form, knowing the fact that they've always tends to have a good run of form after a Cascadia Derby win. And it's just in general that if you win the Cascadia Derby, you are going to get the momentum on your side. But the shots in this one, 16 shots compared to 11 that the Timbers had, 8 shots on goal for the 3 that the Sounders had, 7 shots off target for the 1 that the Timbers had, 2 shots that was blocked for the 6 that the Sounders had, and possession-wise, 37% possession compared to, I actually wrote it wrong. It's not 43% possession, but 63. It's actually 63% possession compared to 36% possession. Actually, gone backwards here in terms of the percentage-wise. It wouldn't make sense if it's like 43% possession compared to 37 possession, because that would only be like 80% possession. The math, of course, wouldn't check out. But yeah, big win for the Timbers and for the Sounders. I mean, I guess they'll be looking forward to the Cascadia Derby in Providence Park, because like I said, the road team tends to fare better, and that they're looking for that revenge and hope that trend continue in the next Cascadia Derby, when both of these teams met, I believe, in late August of this season. But that being said, moving on, in the next match, we got Atlanta United versus Austin FC, and yeah, Austin is red hot right now. And if you have any doubt that this team is a pretender, I think this game pretty much ended all of that doubt, because after they get this 3-0 win against Atlanta United, this is now their 4th straight road win so far this season. Now, in the first half, just 2 minutes in, Wiley did blast it high from close range before in the 8th minute, Los Verdes would take the lead. It's Felipe scoring his first goal for Austin from Findlay to give them a 1-0 lead, but in many ways it was optional defending from Atlanta. Like, they did a good job in terms of defending that play and basically let Felipe wide open there, which, when you leave somebody wide open in the box, bad thing usually happens. And just 11 minutes later, things got even worse for Atlanta as they find themselves 2-0 down after Findlay was able to put it away. And again, another defensive breakdown. This time it's Caleb Wiley, the culprit. I mean, just completely whiffs on a clearance. Defender's worst nightmare in terms of completely take a swing and a miss on the clearance. Like, if you're an attacker and you took a swing and a miss, it might be frustrating, but it's not as bad as a defender does it. Because if a defender decided to do it, oh boy, you basically might have just gifted the other team a goal, and that's exactly what happened. Like, Wiley just whiffed it, and Findlay just say, oh, thank you very much, I'm just going to tap that one in, and just like that, Austin were leading 2-0 in this game. Cisneros trying to get one back for the host, but he puts it wide from close range. And then Felipe made it 3-0, but unfortunately, the goal was disallowed for offside. But I thought Atlanta's defending was just ball watching throughout this one. Like, the amount of time that Austin was able to pump the ball into the box and able to find an open player says a lot. The fact that a lot of those defenders were ball watching, and a lot of those players were losing their marker and looked completely lost every time when those balls come into the box. Though in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, Martinez would put one right to Stuvert. I'll talk about a little bit later how Martinez definitely has some choice words in the post-game press conference, talk about this Atlanta team. But we head to halftime with Austin leading 2-0. But in the second half, it would be 3-0 in favor of Austin, as Jerussi would score to make it 3-0 in favor of Austin to continue his MVP consideration this year. But this actually came after Ruti struck the post, though Jerussi, of course, cleaned up the mess here to make it 3-0. And then on the other end, Stuvert actually romped Campbell on a header from close range before Araujo hit one right to Stuvert. Martinez also hits one right to Stuvert as Atlanta sort of finally woke up. But, for the 67,000 that was in attendance, it's kind of disheartening, the fact that, yeah, you're down 3-0 and now you started to wake up and look for it on the attack. Though, on the other end, Rios Novos actually robbed Felipe from close range. Again, Felipe just getting so much space to work with. Where in the world was the marking there from Atlanta United? In the 74th minute, Araujo blasted wide from close range. Though, as much as I talk about the bad defending from Atlanta, I thought both defense weren't very good, and it feels like they just completely check out. In the 77th minute, Jerussi almost scored his second goal if it wasn't for the post getting in the way. And then at the final whistle, there was a lot of boo birds around Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I mean, there was 67,000 inside. About maybe 2,000 or so were wearing the Los Verdes color. But yeah, the Atlanta faithful inside was not happy whatsoever. And like I said before, Joseph Martinez, he definitely had some strong words at the post-game press conference. Talk about the team and the lack of fight, and even threatening the team that he could potentially leave this team once his contract is up. Which, if you would have told me that was a case a couple of years ago, you would have just laughed at me. But this team is in complete turmoil right now. That is Atlanta United, as this is by far the most embarrassing loss that they suffer this season, and actually is the worst loss that they suffer in their franchise history. And in terms of the shots in this one, I mean, the stats doesn't really tell us the story. 19 shots compared to 10 that Austin has. Both teams had 4 shots on goal. 6 shots off target compared to 4 that Austin has. 9 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Austin has. And possession-wise, 62% possession compared to 38% possession. And, I think on the attacking end, I think maybe the stats kind of doesn't tell the fact that Atlanta didn't play poorly, because on the attack, they did create some good chances, but they weren't able to finish. But man, on the other end, it was complete shambolic defending from Atlanta United. And this is a team that, Atlanta, I know that they have suffered a lot of back-breaking injury, especially on the back line part. But still, that shouldn't resort to what we saw in this game, where that back line just pretty much gone AWOL in this one. And that, again, this is a team that I think, if this bad run continue, Gonzalo Pineda might be not only on the hot seat, but he could potentially get fired from this team, because there's one thing that we know about Atlanta United, and especially their fan base. They do not tolerate failure, and they already saw what happened in 2020 of how disastrous that season was under Frank de Boer, and then obviously the disastrous start that they had last season, and eventually letting them go of Gabriel Hines. But now with Gonzalo Pineda, the pressure is on him, but it's also pressure on the front office too, because guys like Carlos Bocanegra and Dios, I think they should be feeling the heat too, with the way that this team has been heading in a downward spiral ever since that Eastern Conference loss that they suffered against TFC. And that, while we know that maybe that Atlanta team from a couple of years was maybe kind of give Atlanta United fans a little bit of a false narrative that their team is going to be the dominant side, and maybe give them a little bit spur of that. I mean, it feels like it's been a long time ago since this team has looked like the Atlanta, and that, again, it's gotten to a point where their fan base has a right to be angry about this, because this is just a huge downward spiral that they had, and it's not like it's a downward spiral for the past couple of years. It's been a huge drop since the 2020 season, and unless things doesn't change, there's going to be changes, I think, with the front office, this team. But again, I talk about Austin. This is a team that is for real, and if you're still doubting this team, then yeah, you clearly are not watching how this team is playing, because you don't win 4 straight road game by accident. And those road team that they play, they're a decent road team, and some of them are actually playoff team too. And while Atlanta is definitely heading toward a downward spiral, it's not Austin's fault that is the case. They took care of their business, which is exactly what good team does when they play against struggling team on the road. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is Charlotte versus Nashville SC. So this was also a historic moment for Charlotte, as they notched the biggest win in their franchise history in terms of margin, and scored the most goal in a game in their franchise history against Nashville SC. Though I will say that the scoreline kind of is a little bit deceiving, because Charlotte, of course, were able to really kind of put away the game. And also, I just realized that I made another mistake here. I accidentally put the goals wrong here. So let me just change that very quickly. But yeah, the scoreline kind of is a little bit deceiving, because Charlotte kind of pulled away late in this game, scoring those 2 late goals. But for most part of this game, it was relatively even. It could have been anybody's game if one of these teams turns out to be the more clinical side, which in the end Charlotte was that team. Now, in the 9th minute, there was a big opportunity early for the host, as Zimmerman missed just high in the back post. I mean, you could maybe forget, given that Zimmerman is a defender, but we know he can score from that range, and he'll be utterly disgusted the fact that he missed that. Though, on the other end, Bronico puts it just high from 17 yards out before Kalina denied Mukhtar on the doorstep of the goal. And again, both teams getting some good chances early, and that would be kind of the case for the rest of this game. But a penalty was given to Charlotte in the 24th minute, as Anuga brought down Ruiz in the box, which the captain, Christian Fuchs, was able to step up to take the penalty, and he puts that one away for the first career MLS goal for Christian Fuchs there. So, yeah, congratulations of him getting his first MLS goal and his first Charlotte goal, but that gave Charlotte a 1-0 lead heading into the latter part of the first half. Now, in the latter part of the first half, Leao fired one right to Kalina, before on the other end, Schwadetsky hits one straight to Willis. Mukhtar actually struck the post from point-blank range in the 44th minute. He wants that one back, because, again, Mukhtar is another player that he is definitely going to continue his MVP case, and if he wants to win the MVP, that's kind of one that he needs to bury, especially him being wide open like that in the box. Then Meal puts it over the bar in the 2nd minute of stoppage time, and despite Nashville push to get that equalizer, Charlotte does escape by heading into halftime with a 1-0 lead. Now in the second half, Reyna puts it wide from close range before Mukhtar had a shot that was deflected wide. And once again, the start of the second half was similar to the first. Both teams was getting the chances of getting that second goal, but it turns out it would be Charlotte the one that gets the second goal, as in the 61st minute, Schwadetsky would score from Reyna and Ruiz to make it 2-0 in favor of Charlotte, and you can see what that means for Karol Schwadetsky. I mean, he celebrated with the supporters there by jumping being up in the supporter group section. But I think in many ways he deserved to be celebrated like that, because it's been rough going for Karol Świderski ever since his good form back in May, and you just feel like that goal maybe is finally a goal that, you know, I talked many times before, when a striker can finally break that drought, maybe good things is going to be happening, and this might be good news for Charlotte that Świderski maybe finally has ended the drought that he's been in. But in the 67th minute, a penalty was given to Nashville after VAR deemed that Afo brought down Mukhtar in the box, and Mukhtar, of course, who won the penalty, would take the penalty, and he would score on the penalty here to make it 2-1 in favor of Charlotte. I mean, you know, with how this game is going, I think it's justice the fact that Nashville was able to get themselves back into the game. In fact, they immediately pressed for that equalizer. Kalina was able to deny Mukhtar from close in the 83rd minute before Davis actually heads it right to Kalina as he looked to score for the second consecutive game. But then in the 88th minute, Charlotte basically put this game on ice as Ruiz would score here from Bender to make it 3-1 in favor of Charlotte. And Charlotte, just to kind of make sure, they would score another one in the first minute of stoppage time. And who else but Andre Shiinshiki, who has just looked like a different player ever since he's come to Charlotte, and he started to look like the player that when he came into the league with the Rapids, were a guy that had a lot of potential to be a decent number 9, because he scored here again from Ben Bender to make it 4-1 in favor of Charlotte. By the way, Bender, also a great game for him, notching 2 assists in this one. And in the end, Charlotte with a 4-1 win against Nashville SC. And in terms of shots in this game, Nashville actually had more of the shots. 19 shots compared to 13 that Charlotte had. 7 shots on goal compared to 6 that the host had. 4 shots off target compared to 6 that Nashville has. 3 shots that was blocked compared to 6 that Nashville has. And possession-wise, 61% possession compared to 39% possession that Nashville has in this game. And again, you know, when you look at how this game plays out, you know, the 4-1 scoreline wasn't actually reflect in terms of how this game was a relatively close game, but this was just a classic example of what happened when one team were able to put away their chances and the other wasn't able to do so. And for Charlotte, they was able to be clinical. Nashville wasn't, and now they find themselves, I think now I'm not sure if they're still above the red line right now, because Nashville has been having a tough going in these last couple of games, and I think there maybe is a little bit of a concern, the fact that, you know, this is supposed to be a time when they should be going on a good run with a heavy home kind of end to the season, and that we also know that they're very good on the road. But yeah, they you know, they didn't play bad in this game on the road, but it also just felt like this was a very similar kind of performance against RSL earlier this season. Remember how they were dominant in that game and they weren't able to finish, and they came on the losing end, and that this has to be frustrated that it has happened again in this one against Charlotte FC. But that being said, I am now going to switch board and look at the next 4 game that happened in terms of the busy Saturday action, and now look at some of the Saturday night action that happened in match week number 19. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is Cincinnati versus the New York Red Bulls. And this game was kind of similar to the one I talked about between Charlotte versus Nashville, where it was relatively even. But the only difference is that it ends up to be a 1-1 draw in this game. Though, you know, both of these teams, they'll be kind of a little bit frustrated, consider, you know, the 3 points was definitely up for grabs late in this one. But in the first half, in the 4th minute, Klimala did hit one right to Salatano before Vasquez blast one wide, and then Brenner had a chance in the 15th minute, but he puts one right to Cornell. I thought Cincinnati was gaining the traction, and they were looking to try to get the opening goal, and they do. It's Vasquez in the 20th minute, which he scored, I believe, his 11th goal so far this season to give Cincinnati a 1-0 lead. That lead would be short-lived, though, because a penalty was given to the Red Bulls after Gaddis brought down Token in the box, which Lewis Morgan was able to put away that penalty, and the game was all tied up at 1 apiece. Not long after, Morgan looked to get his second goal, but he missed that one wide before Brenner puts it wide from close range in the 35th minute. And in a relatively even first half, we head to halftime, tied at 1 apiece for both of these teams. Though in the second half, Cincinnati would go down to 10 men as Alan Cruz, of course, gets his second yellow card. And again, despite the fact that, you know, one thing I didn't mention, the fact that Cincinnati was down to 10 men for the remaining of the game kind of remained even between both of these teams. Morgan looked to take advantage of that immediately, but this one was denied by San Antonio. Morgan had a good game in this one, and of course mentioned he got on the score sheet earlier with the penalty. Barriel, on the other end, puts it wide from close range before Morgan had a header that goes wide from the corner. So not only Lewis Morgan had a good game, but he was very active in front of goal in this one. The game, of course, started to once again become even, and, you know, it was up for grabs. I mean, both teams was pressing for that second goal. Barriel hits one right to Cornell before Barlow had a header that goes wide in the 80th minute. Then there was a shout for a penalty that was not given for Cincinnati in the first minute. And then right after that, there was some tempers flare between both of these teams. And this all started with Acosta kind of had some choice words with a couple of the Red Bulls players. But eventually he actually would get sent off in this one after he headbutted one of the Red Bulls player, which I don't know exactly who it was when I watched the condensed highlights of this match. But, you know, when I look up on the replay of that, I mean, it looks soft, in my opinion. Like, yes, I know Acosta did headbutt, and anytime when you decide to headbutt someone, you're basically asking for a red card, but it kind of looked like maybe Acosta kind of headbutt the neck of, or, well, not really the neck, but almost kind of above right here, just below the neck of one of the Red Bulls player, and that, I feel like that was a little bit soft, and especially the way that it wasn't really a strong headbutt. I mean, it was nothing like a classic Zinedine Zidane kind of headbutt or anything, but just kind of lightly tap on the headbutt there, and I guess the referee maybe seen that deem as a straight red, but nevertheless, the Red Bulls, or actually not the Red Bulls, but Cincinnati was down to 9 men up to that point, and you're just thinking, well, maybe the Red Bulls can have a chance to really push man forward, because, you know, we do have 4 minutes stoppage time in this one, and that extra shenanigans kind of take 2 minutes off of that. Nope. Instead, the referee blows for the full-time whistle, despite the fact that we barely played 2 minutes of the 4 minutes added on. And yeah, I mean, it's safe to say that the referee was probably tired of the game, and he decided that he's not having it anymore. And yeah, I mean, there was definitely some frustration from ball players, and even the fans too, because, you know, they watch the stoppage time mostly just because of a stoppage of that tempers flare situation, and barely anything was being played in some way, kind of maybe rob us of what could have been a good ending in this one. But nevertheless, it ended in a 1-1 draw, as I said, and the shots in this one, 10 shots for the 8 that the Red Bulls had, 4 shots on goal for the 3 that the Red Bulls had. Both teams had 3 shots off target, 3 shots was blocked for the 2 that the Red Bulls had, and possession-wise, 46% possession compared to 54% possession that the Red Bulls had in this game. And like I said, you know, point is fair for both of these teams, because again, both of these team had their opportunity to get all 3 points, but unfortunately they weren't able to do so after this game, after the full 90 minutes was being played. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, we got Montreal versus Sporting KC. So this was a game where it looked like early on Montreal was going to get all 3 points, with them scoring an early goal in the 13th minute, courtesy of Kyoto, scoring from Lappinainen and Kone to give them a 1-0 lead. And then things kind of took a turn, and that it did not take a good turn for the host in this one, because after, when Shelton looked like he was trying to tie it immediately for Sporting KC, but puts it wide from close range, Sporting KC would get the equalizer in the 29th minute, as Roger Espinoza might have just scored the goal of the week here, as he just chipped Breza from about 40 yards out. And, you know, again, anytime when you see a player chip the goalkeeper from that far of a distance, you know that it's definitely going to be considered a goal of the week contention. I mean, there was a lot of good goals this week, but I think that one could potentially win out. Though you got to also say that while it was a good goal of the week contention, it probably shouldn't have happened if Kyoto didn't just give the ball away in the midfield. Like, you know, you simply cannot just give the ball like that in the midfield and not expect that you could potentially be punished there. But, you know, unlike times when I see there's a bad turnover in the midfield, it seems like Roger Espinoza was wasting no time to chuck that one in, and that I guess he saw Breza coming off his lines way too much, and he decided to have a go at it, and he's able to chip the goalkeeper, and just like that, the game was tied up at 1 apiece. Though Kamar Miller did try to retake the lead for Montreal, but he heads one right to Melia from the corner, and then Toy puts it wide from 12 yards out in the first minute of stoppage time, as we head to halftime at 1-1, just like the last game. Now in the second half, Schreiner did puts it high after oh god, what did I wrote here? Oh, after there was the ball was kind of pinball in the box there. It's kind of embarrassing the fact that I can't even read my handwriting there for a second. But yeah, that ball was kind of pinballed in, and Schreiner got the last touch off of it, but he puts that one high. And you gotta say, for Sporting cases, they were very lucky, because anytime when the ball is pinball like that, yeah, it doesn't usually end up well for the defensive team. But overall, there was not much happening in the first 15 minutes. That all changed in the 63rd, as Remy Voltaire would score his first goal of the season from Shelton to give Sporting KC a 2-1 lead. Although the game was almost tied up at 2 apiece if it wasn't for Milia come up with a big save to deny Miljevic from 17 yards out. And as the time winds down, Sporting KC was in bunker mode. And I would say that this game from Sporting KC, they kind of play a perfect road game in this one. You know, when you're on the road, and especially when you find yourself down 1-0, you need to keep fighting and eventually get yourself back into this game and eventually maybe get a second goal, which they did exactly that in the second half. But at the end, you need to maybe try to seize things out and maybe soak in the pressure, which they kind of did for the last 20 minutes of the game, as Montreal was pushing man forward to get the equalizer. Miller had a chance to do so, but he had set wide, and he probably should have done better there, because he had a free header, and we know Kamal Miller can finish a good header there. Before Amelia once again come up with a big save to deny Miller once again, this time from 12 yards out. And yeah, in the end, Sporting KC hold on to win 2-1 in this one, as they get another road win and now get themselves off the foot of the Western Conference once again. And the shots in this one, 16 shots for the 6 that Sporting KC had, 5 shots on goal for the 3 that Sporting KC had, 7 shots off target for the 2 that Sporting KC had, 4 shots that was blocked for the 1 that Sporting KC had, and possession-wise, 65% possession compared to 35% possession that Sporting KC has in this game. And you know, overall, you know, I know the stats were heavily in favor of Montreal, but for the most part, Sporting KC did a very good job defending in this game, which is something we haven't said a lot about this team this season. I mean, this team, there's been times where they have not done well in terms of their defensive assignment, but this game they play very well in the defensive part and did just enough in the attack to get the win. But for Montreal, inconsistency is starting to be a problem for Wilfred Nancy team. Like, you know, we saw a week ago they got that big victory against Seattle, but then they got humble against the Galaxy, and now dropping it against Sporting KC, one of the worst team in the league, is definitely not one that will make a case that this team, you know, I still think that this team will make it to the playoffs, and I still think they're kind of a dark horse team once they get to the playoffs. But as I said before, you know, maybe that dark horse kind of mention is not really a good thing for a team, because I've mentioned so many times when I talk about a team that is a dark horse, and they tends up to just fail in the first hurdle, and it seems like maybe that could be the case for Montreal, especially if they do make it to the playoffs. Maybe there's going to be some inexperience, but also the lack of consistency for this team. And if you're inconsistent and you make it to the playoffs, you're probably not going to go very far into it. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is TFC versus the San Jose Earthquakes. And for a second, I thought I was watching a Minnesota United away game, because the Quakes decided to adapt the Adrian Heath kind of tactics in this one, which is get the early goal and then decided to bunker for the whole game, hope that they can get away with a 1-0 lead, only to kind of blow it in a matter of just 4 minutes. But one thing that at least the Quakes have that Minnesota probably don't have, and at least what Adrian Heath doesn't have, is that this team does show some fight at the end, and that they always have that never say die in Goonies magic kind of a thing in them, and that it was shown in this one, salvaging a 2-2 draw against Toronto FC. Now, in the first half, I thought Toronto was on the front foot early. Jimenez had a chance in the 5th minute, but he heads that one wide. And I thought it was a slow start for the Quakes. I mean, you know, they really had problem in terms of getting a foothold into the game, or even getting any possession. I mean, most of the possession in the early part of this game was dominating in the TFC half. Though that did change, because they eventually gained a foothold into the game, and they would actually take the lead in this game, as Jeremy Ebobisse would score from Kikanovic to give the Quakes a 1-0 lead. I mean, that was just a beautiful strike there from Ebobisse, who's now got double-digit goal for the Quakes. But even a better assist for Benji Kikanovic, that he's definitely making his case that he can definitely get that spot away from Kate Cal right now. But at the same time, I also think that goal probably wouldn't happen if it wasn't for a bad turnover from Toronto. Like, again, when you turn the ball away in your own half, you're basically asking of potentially getting conceded, and that exactly is what happened in this play. Lopez then tried to double the lead for the Quakes, but he missed that one wide in the 35th minute before Kikanovic hits one high in the 41st minute. And the Quakes, again, they were pressing for the second goal. And again, this also is a very Minnesota and kind of Adrian Heath kind of road tactics, where when they get the first goal, they maybe push for the second goal, but then they started to kind of have a huge let off, usually in the beginning of the second half, though it kind of came early in this one, because after that chances, Mark Sinkowski actually robbed DeAndre Kerr there, but he gave him a rebound, and Osorio, all he had to do was just tap that one into the empty net, and he puts it wide. I mean, that is one that he definitely would not want to look back at, one that, Jonathan Osorio, we know he can score goals and score big goals for TFC, and that's one that he's got to bury, and the Quakes got away with it. And speaking of getting away with it, they got away with another one in the 45th minute as DeAndre Kerr struck the post on the header. By the way, Kerr had a really good game in this one, and it's a big surprise that you'll find out later he'll be on the score sheet for this TFC side. But yeah, it was a huge let off for the Quakes, and in a game where it looked like they were going to get the second goal, all of a sudden it looked like they're just holding on to get the 1-0 lead heading into the halftime, and fortunately for them, that's exactly what happened as we head to halftime with the Quakes holding on to a 1-0 lead. In the second half, it seems like Toronto picked up where they left off at the end of the first half, continued to be on the front foot and press for the equalizer. Is the Quakes going road Heath mode? I mean, I know road Heath mode only is a thing if Adrian Heath is coaching there, but the way I see how the Quakes were set up and the way that they just kind of bunker and give TFC all the possession and trying to soak up as much pressure as possible, that seems like a very Adrian Heath kind of tactics. But in the 54th minute, Mark Sinkowski would deny Osorio from close range before Nathan did had a rare chance for the Quakes in the second half, but he hits that one wide from close range. But you just kind of had a sense with all the pressure that TFC was put, it was a matter of time. They get that equalizer, and they did in the 71st minute as DeAndre Kerr would score from Osorio to tie the game up at 1 apiece. 4 minutes later, TFC would basically turn this game on its head as Osorio would make amends of his horror miss that he had on the stroke of halftime. Though, yeah, this was just a gift from Judson. And, I feel like Judson has really started to regress, and it feels like ever since he came back from that injury that he suffered, he just have not been the same as the player that he was last season, where he was just such a rock for this Quakes team for a long time. But yeah, this was just inexcusable, him just giving the ball away in his own box, and that, yeah, when you do that usually means that you're going to concede a goal, and it's not surprised that is the case. And I'm also just waiting for Alex Cavallo to be unmasked and reveal that it was Adrian Heath coaching this team, because literally this looks exactly the same thing I've seen Minnesota did against Inter Miami and also in the game against New England. Well, more like against Inter Miami when they gave up like two goals in quick succession after they were leading for majority part of this game. Though in the 88th minute, TFC had a chance to end this game, but Mark Sinkowski with a big save, robbing Aki Noah as he went through on goal there. And yeah, I mean, that turns out to be a huge moment of this game, because in the first minute of stoppage time, after Westbrook was able to rob Ibobasi from close range, in the third minute of stoppage time, the Quakes show that Goonies magic again. And it's an unlikely score too. Jack Scahan scoring his first career MLS goal from Jackson Yule to give the Quakes the equalizer there. I mean, what a great time for you to score your first career MLS goal right on the death of this game. And yeah, in the end, the Quakes were able to salvage a draw and salvage what looked like it was a very frustrating game, because coming into this game, this TFC side, we know they've been in a bad form, and it would be so classic Quakes if they do lose to an Eastern Conference team that is not having a good run so far. But again, fortunately for Jack Scan, he rescued the Quakes there to get the 2-2 draw. As the shots in this one, 16 shots compared to 9 that the Quakes had, 6 shots on goal compared to 3 that the Quakes had, 7 shots off target compared to 4 that the Quakes had, 2 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that TFC had, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that the Quakes has in this game. And despite the fact that the Quakes did rescue themselves a draw, because Sporting KC did get a win on the road, that means they're back dead last in the Western Conference. And it kind of sucks because, the Quakes haven't been playing badly ever since Alex Carvalho took over. Well, except maybe on the road, and also the defense is still a hot tire fire right now. But, I've said it before. I'm, as much as it is frustrated to see once again the Quakes are being at the bottom, at least there's progress that is made from this team. And that's kind of all I ask for, because we know this season they're not making the playoffs, and that I think it's now really clear what needs to be done with this team, and that they just need to bring some reinforcement in the defense, and that should maybe able to get themselves in a good form. But also, I think the other thing that they might need to figure out is get some road points, because again, this was an opportunity for them to get the road points, or get all 3 road points and get a road win, but unfortunately they weren't able to do so. But at least thankfully they were able to hold on, or not hold on, but at least come back to get themselves a point out of this game. But for TFC, I know they were down for majority of the game, but this just kind of sums up the season for them this season, where in these games where you need to get a win if you want to get yourself back in the Eastern Conference race, you cannot afford to drop points at home, especially concede a goal that late into this game. But moving on, in terms of the next match, well, TFC did blow a late lead and salvage a point, at least they're not like the Chicago Fire. And I feel like this game pretty much just sums up the Chicago Fire this season, and maybe really for the last decade of this team, because the Chicago Fire, I think it is safe to say that they're probably like the Cleveland Browns of MLS right now. No matter what changes this team decided to go, they always find a way to disappoint their team. And in this game, it looked like they were going to get a huge victory once again at home. And at least, their home form lately has been pretty good. And then they decided to just completely implode in the last 30 minutes of this game. Now, in the first half, one thing I want to mention is Arlo White is back commentating Fire's home game, and technically this is not the first game that Arlo White is back commentating for the Fire. His first game was actually against the Quakes, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get the Fire feed, because the streams that I watch is from the Quakes. But I was very happy to see Arlo White basically commentating home game again, though I will say that Arlo White has been kind of a controversial figure lately, ever since he decided to be the main commentator for that Live Golf tournament. And I'm not going to discuss why that is controversial, but you probably know why that is the case, and it kind of involves something to do with Saudi Arabia and also human rights kind of abuse, and that's as far as I'm going to kind of talk about. But nevertheless, great to see Arlo White basically commentating game, and I'm also hoping that eventually Apple TV will bring him in as a main commentator, because that one of my favorite commentator is Arlo White, and we'll see whether or not if he's going to be sticking around with the Fire, especially if he is going to be calling some game on Apple TV. Now, in the 17th minute, Duran did hit one straight to Rome before he missed an absolute sitter from 7 yards out. And again, the Fire were on top early in this game, and we're looking to get the opener. Shaqiri tried to do so, but he puts it wide from 12 yards out before Room denied Gutierrez from long range. And trail the back, I cannot resist by saying, is this look like one of those days again for the Chicago Fire, where we've seen this so many times this season, where they had an opportunity, they looked like they were going to get the opening goal, and they never able to do so because of poor finishing. But little do we know that in the 29th minute, they were able to find their finishing, as it's Rafael Schijos scoring his first career MLS goal, and his first goal for the Chicago Fire here from Mueller and Shaqiri to give them a 1-0 lead. And then 12 minutes later, it's the local boy, Chris Mueller, scoring his first goal for the Chicago Fire from Duran and Gutierrez to give the Fire a 2-0 lead. I mean, it was due, the fact that Chris Mueller finally get himself on the score sheet for the Chicago Fire, because I think if there is one player that at least has been a positive on the attack for the Fire, it's got to be Chris Mueller and the energy that he has brought in, and like I said, well deserved to finally get on the score sheet. And the Fire were leading 2-0 heading into the second half. Now in the second half, there was not much happening, which you would think that favorites the Fire, because when you're a team that is leading and you keep this game being slow, it doesn't really matter, because you're at least chewing the clock and able to have a comfortable 3 points. But little did we know that's not how it went, because this is when the implosion began. And it all started in the 63rd minute when Etienne Jr. would score from Zarian and Morris to get one back for the Crew. And just 10 minutes later, or actually 12 minutes later, he would score again. This time from Diaz and Zarian to tie the game up at 2 apiece. And then in the 83rd minute, you know that $10 million man, Cucho Hernandez, making his debut coming off the bench, and that there's a lot of expectation is put on him and whether if he's delivered. Oh yeah, he's already delivering, because literally a couple of minutes after he came on, he would score the third goal to complete the comeback from Diaz to make it 3-2 in favor of the Crew, and it was just complete implosion from the Chicago Fire. I mean, that it's absolutely inexcusable. The fact that you went from looking very comfortable, even heading into the second half, to just completely implode the way that they had. And it gets worse for them, because Navarro would actually get his second yellow card off the game, and at the final whistle, it is not a big surprise that there was a lot of boo birds that was ringed down at Soldier Field, probably just as loud as the one that we heard at Mercedes-Benz Stadium at the full-time whistle, and rightfully so that those Fire fans deserve to boo their team, because, again, this is just sums up the Chicago Fire this season and for the past decade, where there's nothing but pain and failure in this team, and this is just another game that kind of adds to the latest chapter and fertility of why the Fire is considered one of the worst and one of the most frustrating teams to root for the past couple of years. But the shots in this one, 13 shots compared to 9 that Columbus had, 5 shots on goal compared to 4 that Columbus had, 4 shots off target compared to 7 that the Fire has. Both teams had 1 shot that was blocked, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession that the Chicago Fire has in this game. And I believe this is also the second straight win that the Crew has on the road. Starting to figure out their rope form. I mean, this is something that's been always their Achilles heel, but they're starting to figure out their rope form, which is definitely a great thing, because, you know, we know this is a team that can do well at home. Well, this season it hasn't been the case, but as long as you're able to get those roll points, especially against struggling team, and maybe turn things around at Lower.com Field, who knows? This Columbus team could be in the playoff conversation. I mean, you could argue that a lot of those teams below the red line is still in the playoff conversation, and Columbus definitely made them make their cases in this game, getting a big win, and especially seeing their $10 million man get off to a great start, and seeing Cucho Hernandez already making an instant impact. And, you know, I will also say that, you know, time will tell whether or not if he continue, because, you know, you can't just judge player based on just one game, no matter how good or bad their performance is. But, you know, there's an old saying that first impression is always important, and so far the first impression of Cucho Hernandez arriving to the Columbus Crew has definitely been a great one. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 4 games, or actually not the last 4 games, I'm sorry, but the last 3 games that happened in terms of the busy Saturday action in terms of match week number 19. Alright, so now it's time to talk about the crazy game between the Houston Dynamo versus FC Dallas, in a game arguably is the best game of the week and probably the best Texas derby I've ever seen between these two Texas rivals, because my oh my, that stoppage time was some of the most craziest action I have ever seen in an MLS game, and we'll definitely get to talk about that in just a moment. But first, in the second minute of this game, Sebastian Ferrer did miss wide from outside before Arriola puts one too high from close range. But fast forward to the 27th minute, Matt Hedges scored the first goal of the Texas derby, as he scored here from Velasco to give Dallas a 1-0 lead. And then Cervania was looking to try to get that second goal, but he puts it wide from long range in the 30th minute. And then Clark had to deny Palmico from close range. And, you know, after it was a relatively even start to the beginning of this game, Dallas was started to take over this game, and they were looking to press for that second goal. But in the end, we do head to halftime with Dallas only leading 1-0 against the Houston Dynamo. But moving into the second half, Sebastian Ferrer did try to tie it, but he puts it high from long range. And then on the other end, Velasco tried his luck from distance, but also puts that one wide. And then Carrasquilla also tried his luck from distance from 22 yards out, but he his shot goes right to Clark in the 62nd minute. And again, once again, the second half was kind of like the first, where both teams had some chances. It was back and forth between both of these teams. Pass would deny Pico from 10 yards down the 69th minute. Before, in the 70th minute, Alfredson would tie the game up for the Dynamo. And this is where get ready to buckle your seatbelt, because this is where things get really crazy, really weird, and we pretty much have reached peak MLS After Dark moment. Because after that goal was scored, Houston was definitely pushing for the second goal. Pass robbed Karaskia from 5 yards out, and as I mentioned, momentum was with the Dynamo as they continued to press for the lead. And it looked like they got the lead when Sam Junka scored in the 82nd minute, but the goal was disallowed because of offside. Now, obviously, I know Dynamo fans are going to be upset about this, because how in the world is there supposed to be offside when this ball was coming into the box and it was pretty clear that Junka was in an onside position? Well, here's the problem. When Junka shoot this one was actually in the path of Fafa Pico, and I mentioned before, you don't have to touch the ball when the shot is coming to you. If you interfere, as what was the case in this one for Fafa Pico, yeah, that's going to count as offside, and that's also going to kind of count as, well, not really just obstruction toward the goalkeeper, but you're basically in the line of the shot, and that you if you do that, and even if you didn't touch it, that is count as an offside. So yeah, I think that is the reason why that goal, of course, was disallowed. But like I said, Dynamo fans are not happy about that call. But in the 88th minute, Pico did put it wide, though. There was a very scary incident as Marco Farfan actually went out cold after he took a knee to the head, and I think this was when he was sliding on the ground, and I think Team Paz was coming out, and usually when that happened, you always hope that a player doesn't get taking a knee to the head, because anytime when you slide down and the goalkeeper come rushing down, there's always that chance that of course is the case, and unfortunately this was the case. And yeah, you can definitely see Farfan was out cold, and that they immediately rushed the medical staff to see if he's okay, and it's fortunate he was okay, but there's no doubt that he definitely suffered a concussion because of it. But nevertheless, in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, and as I said, up to this point, the Dynamo were looking like the one that they were going to get that second goal. But then, really kind of against the run of play, Jesus Ferreira would score in the 3rd minute of stoppage time. And not only the fact that he scored this second goal, what looked like it was going to be the winning goal in this Texas derby, but he decided to celebrate in front of the Houston faithful. By the way, it was a packed house at PNC Field in this game. This probably is the first time I've seen a packed crowd at a Houston Dynamo game, probably since when Chicharito was playing for the Galaxy in that game against the Dynamo. And like I said, Houston does have a very big Mexican population, and with the fact that Hector Herrera was introduced in this game, and he actually came on in the 63rd minute of the game, and he got a huge standing ovation as he comes on. It was not a big surprise that there is a lot of Mexican crowd in there, but also this is a derby, and usually whenever you have the Dynamo play against FC Dallas, the attendance does get a little bit better. But again, not to mention with Hector Herrera being there, and that, like I said, I always thought that when they made this move, it was a big move for the Dynamo, but also a move that was clearly used as a marketing reason to get butts in the seats. And I'll tell you what, it definitely worked out, because I definitely saw a lot of El Tri jersey in that crowd. But that being said, if there is El Tri fans in that crowd, you know what's going to happen. You know how Mexican fans are infamous whenever they decide to throw garbage onto the pitch, and yeah, they did exactly that. Once Ferreira basically celebrated in front of the Houston faithful, and maybe even some Mexican fans, he basically was chucked down with beer. And I think Mexican fans probably knew that was Jesus Ferreira, and knew that, yeah, he played for the U.S. I'm going to chuck my beer down because he's a U.S. player. But that being said, it's absolutely inexcusable that of course happened. In fact, it got so bad that the game actually had to be stopped. They said it was because of racial chant, but I think it's probably due to the fact that there was just, like, I've seen beer cans being chucked onto the field, and I've mentioned before how many times that is not only very, very dangerous, but it's absolutely unacceptable fan behavior. But this was taken to the next level. Like, it was just, like, there was at least 30 or 40 beer can that was chucked on the ground. There was a couple of Dallas players that was getting hit while Fierro was basically celebrating and kind of rubbing the wounds of those Houston and also Mexican fans. And yeah, I think at the end of that, I think Dallas is very lucky that nobody got injured, because that was definitely not a good scene to see. And that again I think the Dynamo is probably going to do something about that, because you cannot have that happen, especially in that moment like that. But nevertheless, little do we know that was just the beginning of what would be a wild ride that we would be going into stoppage time. It was like 12 minutes of stoppage time, again, partially for a bit of a delay earlier with the goal being disallowed, and also the Farfan injury and all those kind of time wasting that was going on. So as we go into the 8th minute of stoppage time, Quintero did put in a dangerous cross on the free kick, but that one didn't touch anyone. It actually went wide. And then in the 10th minute of stoppage time, Fierro was looking to put this game away, but Clark with an incredible save here, robbing Jesus Ferreira there after he gave the Clark actually redeemed himself here. He actually gave this ball right to Jesus Ferreira, and that it looks like he just made a goalkeeping howler there. But credit to Clark there. They're able to redeem himself there to make a big save. But then in the 11th minute of stoppage time, the Dynamo equalized. It's Teenage Hadabi, the ones that equalized for the Dynamo, and he actually entered the history books, because with that goal that he scored, that is the latest MLS goal that is being scored, the latest non-penalty kick goal that is scored in MLS history, because I believe there was a couple years ago, there was a penalty that was scored really late into the game. But nevertheless, that is definitely a historic moment of what was already a crazy game up to that point. But you also got to question the defense there for Dallas. Like, the fact that, Teenage Hadabi was nowhere near the vicinity when Poss made the save here. I mean, there was like 5 Dallas players that just kind of stood there ball watching there, and that Hadabi basically just said, okay, I'm just going to walk in and score here, because none of them decided to react. And yeah, just like that, the game was all tied up at 2 apiece. And then on the other end, Clark was able to deny Ferreira again, and then on the follow-up, Cervania was put it wide, and at that point, I just couldn't resist by saying, we have reached peak MLS as After Dark moment. Like, this game not only is a game that never wants to end, but it feels like it's a game on steroids, with the way that it was back and forth, and there was just crazy things that has happened on both sides of the field, whether for good reason or for bad reason. And we weren't done yet, because in the 12th minute of stoppage time, what else would capitalize a hectic stoppage time? A red card. And Cervania was the one that, of course, received the red card, and he received a second yellow card there. By the way, he actually received a yellow card in stoppage time, so I think he might be the first player ever in MLS history to get two yellow cards in the second half of stoppage time. But nevertheless, after a crazy game that we've seen in this one, especially in stoppage time, it does end in a 2-2 draw, and the shots in this one, 19 shots for the 13 that Dallas had, 8 shots on goal for the 6 that Dallas had, 4 shots that was off target for the 5 that Dallas had, 2 shots that was blocked for the 7 that Houston has in possession-wise, 60% possession compared to 40% possession that Dallas has in this game. And like I said, easily the best Texas derby we've seen in the atmosphere of this game. I mean, this was probably the best atmosphere I've seen at a Houston Dynamo game probably since when they made that playoff run all the way back in 2016. And if this is going to be the atmosphere that Dynamo brings in, there's no wonder that there could be a bright future for this team, because for so many years, the Dynamo, it's been almost like a meme that talk about how nobody actually attended their game, and the atmosphere there, it was dead as hell. This game basically was the complete opposite. It was an energetic crowd, and although they didn't see their team get the win at the end of the day, they definitely saw a game that is definitely up there in terms of, I mean, I wouldn't say this game is going to be maybe as crazy as the one that we saw before last week, because, oh god, I remember there was a game last week that was just absolutely insane, and it was off the rail. Oh yeah, it was that Orlando City versus DC United game. I don't know if this is gonna be up there, because really the crazy thing didn't happen until till extra time or until stoppage time and late in the second half, but it's definitely going to be up there in terms of game of the year so far this season. But that being said, moving on into the next match is going to be the Colorado Rapids versus Real Salt Lake, and this is a game where for RSL it got away from them because it looked like they were going to walk away with an easy 2-0 win, and even when the Rapids did get one back, it didn't look like they were going to get an equalizer, and then they did late in this game. But before that, in the third minute, Zardes actually heads it high from close ranges. I thought it was a slow start to this game, and keep in mind, they did mention that the temperature of this game was in its mid-90s, and the heat was definitely, I think, could be a factor, because anytime when you have a game that is really hot, even for a night game, yeah, expect things could be very slow throughout the beginning of this game, as the shots were only one apiece throughout the first 15 minutes of this one. Though Lofferson did have a chance to give RSL the lead, but his shot was clear off the line. Ruiz then puts it wide in the 29th minute. And then in the 37th minute, we saw a bit of a tempers flare moment. And again, one of the things I know people say about the Rocky Mountain Cup is it's not really a real rivalry. It's a game. It just feels like any other game, and you may even argue some RSL fans might say that the Rapids aren't really their true rival. Their true rival is Sporting KC. But I think after watching this game, you could argue maybe there is some of that rivalry tension, because there was definitely a flare-up between Rubio and McMath, and this was just classic Diego Rubio. I mean, I think Diego Rubio might be the newest villain in MLS right now, because you know that he loves that extra shenanigans and love to try to get into the grill of an opponent, and he definitely got into the mind of McMath there, because he had some choice with McMath shared those choice words back, and then next thing you know, McMath basically shoved Rubio to the ground. Now, there's no doubt that Rubio kind of embellished that a little bit, and he actually draw a yellow card from McMath, but that's just classic Diego Rubio. And you know, if you a teammate of him, you know, you definitely like a villain like that. But if you're in opposition, that has to be very frustrating. And certainly that crowd at Rio Tinto Stadium was frustrated too, because for the rest of the game, Diego Rubio would basically get booed every time he kicked the ball. Which I think every time when that happened, I think he definitely enjoyed that, being the antagonist. But in the 41st minute, Zardes did heads it right to McMath, but McMath actually spilled this one, though fortunate for him, Colorado couldn't capitalize. Then Max, I thought he should have scored from 10 yards out, being wide open like that, and yeah, the fact that he didn't put that one on target, yeah, that's one that he would love to have back. But there was no doubt that Colorado was knocking on the door and was looking for a late goal heading into stoppage time. Though in the 45th minute, Miriam just curled one wide from close range. But then in the third minute of stoppage time, RSL does take the lead. It's Savarino scoring from Ruiz to give RSL a 1-0 lead. Jefferson Savarino continue to be a huge impact for this RSL team. And it's not a big surprise, because when he left this team, he definitely was the most important player, or at least one of the most important player on this RSL team. I mean, I remember when this team had the likes of Albert Rusnak, Demir Kralak, and Savarino. Those are like the good the prime days of Real Salt Lake, alongside with Kyle Beckerman and even Nick Raimondo in goal. But you know, at least Savarino is showing kinds of that, was scoring a big goal there to give RSL a 1-0 lead. And as we head in the second half, RSL would double their lead in no time, as Justin Mira, who missed a chance in the 45th minute, came very close to do so. He would make no mistake here, and this actually kind of came off of a free kick that Savarino actually struck the post. So Savarino almost scored his second goal there, but Miram was able to clean up that mess there. And yeah, RSL was up 2-0. Could have been 3-0 if Cordova didn't become the latest victim of the post here, as he hits it on the header. And I thought this could be a long night for the Rapids, because there was just no sustained pressure for the Rapids. And knowing the fact that this is a team that, you know, they don't have a good record at Rio Tinto Stadium, this feels like it's one of those nights that RSL is just going to run the Rapids out of the door. But in the 67th minute, there was a lifeline for the Rapids after they won a penalty after Barrios was brought down by Silver in the box, which Rubio was able to convert that, to the annoy of the 20,000 so inside Rio Tinto Stadium. But even with that, I still thought that RSL was doing a good job preventing Colorado of gaining the momentum. Like, I was thinking maybe this could give the Rapids something going, but no, RSL did a good job in terms of seizing this game, and it looked like for sure that they were going to seize out a 2-1 win in this one. But then in the 89th minute, Colorado equalized. It's Abubakar for the second game in a row scoring. This time he scored from Zardes and Acosta to tie the game up at 2 apiece. Now, there was a hint whether or not if that was offside, and it is very close. I mean, I think Abubakar was just onside there. Like, the replay that they shown the one angle, it was, I don't think it's definitive enough to be called an offside. And yeah, that goal, of course, was given. The game was all tied up at 2 apiece. Though Scott Cartwell had a chance to be the hero for RSL, but he puts it just wide from 16 yards out. And that was also a big opportunity, too, because he was wide open there. And while Cartwell hasn't been getting a lot of minutes for RSL, yeah, that's one that you know, in his limited minutes had a chance to be the hero for RSL, but just could not put that one on target. And yeah, in the end, for RSL, this will definitely feel like a loss for them, knowing the fact that they had a 2-0 lead in this game and were looking comfortable for majority part of the second half, only to blow it late in this one. But the shots in this one, 14 shots for the 13 that the Rapids had, 4 shots on goal for the 2 that RSL had, 3 shots off target for the 9 that RSL had, 3 shots that was blocked for the 6 that Colorado has, and both teams had 50% possession in this one. And while the Rapids' winless run continued after this one, consider how they didn't really play that well in this game, besides maybe the latter part of the first half. They're probably happy that they were able to get themselves out of Rio Tinto Stadium, a stadium that's been the house of horror for them in the Rocky Mountain Cup, with a point out of this one. But lastly, moving into the last game of this long review, we got the Florida derby between Orlando versus Inter Miami. And the reason why this is the last game I'm talking about is because there was a weather delay. Because there has to be a weather delay. Like, you knew that when you have two teams that pretty much leads the league in terms of weather delay, and you know Florida is literally a prime area for a weather delay in an MLS game, you knew there's got to be a weather delay in this one. And yeah, the kickoff of this game didn't start until 10:24, and by the time they started the game, Galese was able to deny Vasilev from close range in the 5th minute. And I gotta give Orlando City fans credit, the fact that, you know, they actually stayed for this game. I mean, the stands were still looking pretty full even with the long weather delay, and the wall there for Orlando was pretty much packed, which again, when you saw how that game resumed, you would be mistaken the fact that game started on time, because of the fact that, well, I mean, there was still some empty purple seat, but not as much as you would see after just such a long weather delay. Though you also got to give credit to Inter Miami fans too, because I definitely saw a lot of pink in that crowd at Exploria Stadium. Mota then blast one high in the 70th minute, as I thought Miami was definitely on the front foot and they were the better team coming out of this game. Campana had an opportunity, but he had one just wide there. I mean, that's one that he would love to have back, knowing how good he's been with this team. Though Pereira did have Orlando first opportunity, but he heads that one high, and we head to halftime with the score 0-0 between both of these teams. By the way, I was really hoping we're gonna get some MLS After Dark kind of moment, and while we didn't really kind of got that in this one, we definitely did have a late twist in this one, which I will talk about in just a bit. But in the second half, Janssen almost scored an own goal here after he actually deflected one that was back toward his goal, but he is very fortunate that one went wide. The game I thought become tight, as there was really not much chances for both teams. Calendar did deny Michel on the doorstep of the goal there in the 57th minute, but before Facundo Torres blast one high, and then Urso did the same thing, this time from long range. Though Orlando kind of gaining some steam, getting some half chances that they didn't really get for majority of this game. Though Damian Lowe did have an opportunity in the 72nd minute, as he hits that one wide from close range. And really, as the time winds down, you know, Orlando, they were trying to continue to press for the lead, and Miami was kind of just shutting things down, and we're looking to just walk away with a 0-0 draw, which, you know, it's not the worst idea, because again, I thought this was kind of a game where not really much has happened, so I can understand why Phil Neville want to get out of this with a 0-0 draw. But that being said, when you decide to park the bus like that, and you decide to let the other team have all the possession, not always that of course would work out. And it turns out that was the case in this game again, because in the second minute of stoppage time, just as we thought that this was going to end in a scoreless draw, yeah, Orlando got the late winner, and they actually didn't even score on this play. It's actually Damian Lowe that unfortunately scored an own goal, and you got to feel for him there because I thought he had a really good game in this one, but here there was just some miscommunication between him and Calendar. Calendar was coming off his lines to get it. Lowe probably didn't read it, and he just basically flicked it over his goalkeeper and kind of came off the post and bounced in, and yeah, that's got to be a brutal way for Miami to walk away Explorer Stadium with no points in a loss like that. But that's been kind of the luck in terms of them playing at Explorer Stadium, because I talk about how Colorado and the Riot being a house of horror. That's the same for Inter Miami. I mean, there's been just so much heartbreaking moment at Explorer Stadium, and this is just kind of the latest one, as in the end Orlando walk away with a 1-0 win. And the shots in this one, 8 shots compared to 10 that Miami has. Both teams had 1 shots on goal, 6 shots off target compared to 5 that Orlando has, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Orlando has, and possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that Inter Miami has in this game. And overall, I don't think either of these teams really deserve all 3 points, but hey, you know, it's peak MLS, well, not peak MLS After Dark. It was just, you kind of feel like there was going to be one last twist, and that maybe the MLS After Dark guards was going to provide some craziness, and yeah, it definitely provides some craziness and some wackiness with that own goal. But you know, Orlando wouldn't care. They would get all 3 points, get another victory against their interstate rival, and also continue this frustrating pattern of them winning after they suffer an embarrassing loss, which again, this is not good news for Orlando fans, because they know what's going to happen in the next game. They're probably going to lose the next game, knowing the inconsistent pattern that they've been going through pretty much throughout this whole season. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at all 11 games of this Saturday action. Again, this has been a relatively long review because, again, there's just been so much storylines to talk about, and that this is no doubt by far the best match week I've seen so far this season. And I think it's understandable knowing that this is Heineken rivalry week, and we do see some of the best rivalry that is made. But even in some of these non-rivalry games, there was some craziness that happened. And you know, let's hope that it's going to continue, because Heineken rivalry week actually is not over just yet. It's going to continue in the middle of the week, where we actually got 11 games that's going to be happening in the middle of the week. And tomorrow, when I finish upload this video, well, I'm going to upload this video and upload overnight and schedule this to be upload in the morning. But tomorrow I will have to do the preview in terms of the midweek games. I was actually thinking about doing the emotion index. That's probably going to have to be delayed until next week because of how busy the MLS schedule and how congested the MLS schedule has been in these past couple of weeks. But that being said, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the 3 games and also the other 8 games I mentioned on this board. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.